All right.
Yeah.
Take two.
Again?
Yes.
So my name is Sigga,
I'm
or
Sigga.
Sigríður Harðardóttir, and I head up a team in the Research and Development Department at Össur called Design Center. And that team is based off of industrial designers, and they work on the entire prosthetic portfolio from the very beginning of talking to our users and understanding the unmet needs and their complete environment and what it is, kind of their hopes and dreams and what it is that they need from our products and how we can pull that into the design for services, products, and experiences. And then they follow through from anything from the ideation, sketching, into CAD or computer drawing, and all the way until it is a final product and goes into manufacturing. We also take care of the packaging. And then we have a lot of these kind of random, let's say, design projects for the department. So one of them, for example, has been the design and setup and moving into the new offices that we are now sitting in.
Cool. Interesting. So I'm thinking about your job. To start with, like what it's like to curate the creative process in this way. So you work with a lot of creative people, and can you describe a little bit what that's like? How do you stimulate their creativity and guide them and put frameworks around them, limiting them as well?
Yeah. So to start with, I love my job. So I think I'm one of the lucky ones. It's been a lot of fun ever since I started with Össur. It's been a big challenge for me. I've been so industrial design is quite new in a way in Össur. So before it was mainly the designers that are engineers. So it's been a process to kind of get the industrial designers in there and pull up all of the kind of user centricity. I think Össur is an extremely user-centric company. We've always worked really closely with our users, and our founder is a user, so it's in our DNA. And with the industrial design, it's a methodology of how we go about it and how we visualize it. It's a lot of fun working with designers, and the design team I have is a group of very passionate people. It's been a process to find them because industrial designers are hard to find in Iceland. So I have a team based off one American, one Icelander that was in California for a long time, a Portuguese girl, and right now I have interns from all over the world. And they're all extremely passionate about their jobs. So there's a lot of passion that goes into it, which is amazing. But it's, of course, also challenging because the biggest challenge we have is that we work in a medical device industry. So we have a lot of regulations and processes and things that we have to make sure that we go through. But that works because we have a separate department that specializes in setting the processes and in the regulations, and we have a very good collaboration, and we trust and build trust between them. So we know that they're specialists when it comes to the regulations and things like that. So we can kind of be the creative ones and go out there and think big and brainstorm and then come back, and because we have the people that know what they're doing and kind of trust to lead us into, so that we end up with the final product that can go to market because we did all the right registrations and things like that.
Wow. Yeah. So a little background. So I've been following Össur for quite some time. Been friends with Magnus Oddsson, and it's always been my example of like the corporate way of doing things, as opposed to the private and the public governance. So when you look at governance, huge problem is that people don't communicate very well together, and oversight is rife with incompetency. So I just throw that word out there. While Össur, you know, I came here and I participated in like a type of hackathon day, and that was my experience. There was everybody knew what they were doing. Like you would have a meeting, you would lay out the plan, and then people would independently figure out how to kind of fit in and just make it happen. So as you describe it, I wonder if that's your experience here, or do you feel that you often need to kind of intervene?
No, I would agree, and I think one thing that I've been very proud to see at Össur is that we have inventors. We have people that go out into the garage and just make things happen. Unbelievable to see what they were capable of doing, for example, during the pandemic. And I feel that we celebrate them. So we don't try to fit them into boxes or fit them into an organizational chart, but we celebrate them, and we know who they are. So we go for them for advice and you know, these kind of type of fixers, or you know, they just think in solutions. So I would definitely agree on that. I think it's not easy to kind of contain that in a corporation, and it is, like I mentioned before, it's a medical device industry. It's heavily regulated, but we're still able to keep this kind of startup feeling within the R&D. So we still have the creative types all over, but well structured around with the processes and things that we eventually need to fit into, so that we get the device to our customers, which is why we do all of it, why it really matters, so that we can improve their lives with what we have come up with.
How much of what you're working on is like a fixed plan, and how much of it is like a surprise?
That's a really good question. That's an ongoing conversation that we always have, because the timelines are challenging, because we have to, once we dedicate that we are going to do a certain project or a certain product, we have to have a plan in place. There's so many other departments that come into it, so we need to have a timeline. So we have a really amazing project management office that are doing a great job, and they're always looking to improve. So there is always a plan in place, but we plan also for the unknown. So we know something's going to come up from experience. There are going to come technical issues. We don't know. We have no clue what they are, but we know they're going to come down the road. So that would be one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, we have the setup that we have is that we have a team now that we call Center for New Technology, and they basically just do skunk work all the time. They're just coming up, like working with new technologies, trying new things, and have more of a, like a blank canvas that they can try things in order to innovate and kind of think freely on where to go. Then once we have made a decision, yes, this is something we think is going to be of use to users, and we can market it and we can get it approved, etc. Then it goes into a more fixed channel that has a timeline, and it has these steps that we have to hit in order to go to market.
Can I ask what got you into creativity and design?
That's a good question. So I'm an economist by education. I did my master's in international economics and finance. Wow, I don't even remember anymore what it was. And I worked in diabetes and obesity for 7 years. I started in Denmark. It was a Danish company, and I was a sales rep in Spain. Then I moved to the US in working on kind of the strategy behind obesity and new obesity drugs. Back to Denmark.
Novo Nordisk.
Novo Nordisk, yeah. Then I went back to Denmark, and then the last 4 years was in Italy, in Rome. Yeah. And then it was me and my husband were deciding, we wanted to move away. We were halfway kind of thinking about Luxembourg, Dubai, Sweden, based off of the job opportunities, but then he was super excited to come to Iceland, and I got a job offer here, and we came, but it was for me, and so I was always in sales and marketing. I mean, marketing, there's the creative of the campaign and things like that, but I thought if I'm coming to Iceland, the company I want to work for is Össur. So I had sent in my resume, but there was no position open at the time. And then they called me, or my current boss called me when an open position and asked, hey, is this something interesting? So I applied, did the whole application process, and ended up heading up the design team. So I think why I came here, because I was experienced with this cross-functional work. So from diabetes, it kind of just you switch out the doctors for engineers in the different companies, but the rest of it kind of works the same. So that is where I kind of really got into the industrial design. In my master's, I took every creative course that I could, like especially on entrepreneurship and things like that. But I made a complete switch from sales and marketing to R&D, and this is where the fun happens. It's amazing to be a part of this creative part of it, and to get to work with the designers it's a lot of fun.
I'm sure it's valuable to have that background.
Extremely, and I think if I was an industrial designer, I would, because there's a lot of the kind of organization behind it in order to push for it, and there's the need to understand it so that you can open the path for it and kind of get everyone to understand. Yeah. So there's a lot of that. But I love it. Like for me, the creativity and it's really what kind of keeps me going. So it's a lot of fun, and it was also like just seeing like how design thinking is a part of Össur. It was never a decision, or that's my experience. It was never like a decision that's how we're gonna do things. That's just how we do things. Kind of, you prototype, you fail fast, you keep going, you collect feedback. We don't do anything without having our users with us, feeding us input right away. So it took me a while to understand. Like when I saw the design thinking, I was like, okay, that is actually how we do it. But nobody had introduced it to me, because it just kind of it is how things are done. I think now we know, but kind of. I think it was led a lot by the innovators. That's how we ended up doing things the way we do them.
How much do you think that's because of the way Össur was founded?
A lot, I think. Can
you tell us a little bit about that? Like how Össur came to be?
I think so. I can definitely find people that were there from the beginning, that have a much longer history with Össur and have a really interesting stories to tell you, for sure. But we grew so fast. So we went from kind of this mom and pop shop to a huge company. And still we managed to keep this innovative spirit from the very beginning. So, and I think that is really tough. It's not easy, and we grew by mergers and acquisitions, so buying other companies. But somehow we've managed to keep this kind of innovation spirit alive. And of course, I speak very much from the R&D side of things, because that's my home within the company. And I think because Össur himself, he is an inventor and a user, so that's our core. So I think, I don't know him personally, wasn't here when he was still here, but my feeling is that this is how we speak of him, this is how he's known. So I think that's how it's got to have had an effect on how it's still the culture, on how we go about things.
Yeah, it was around the same time that I was learning about Össur. Mm-hmm. that I was traveling around the Nordic countries, and I got invited to innovation events where I was generally the only disabled person. And these were often events that revolved around solutions for disabled people.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very happy when I came back and started seeing into Össur, see like that all these things that I was complaining about in other companies, they all seem to be, alive here.
Mm.
Like the consideration of bringing in the user from the start and including them. And
Mm-hmm.
I've actually had 2 friends that have worked with Össur.
Mm-hmm.
They've had an idea of how to create some kind of solution from themselves, and then they just got integrated into a team here, and then spent a few months developing a product. And I think one of them actually became a product, the carbon fiber crutches.
Yeah, the fjeder.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard, or I know of also 2 other stories similar where Hilmar, when he was the EVP, there was someone who kept complaining about breaking feet, and in the end he just said, okay, if you're complaining about it, just come and help us make it happen, help us make it better. And the user came and worked on it. And a similar story also on our braces, where a person that was using it was complaining that it was just not done well enough, and then she was just invited to come in and fix it with the team, which I think is a really good way to go about it. So these are kind of the extreme cases where you kind of, if you complain, then come and help us make it better. But there is no project that we do where a user is not involved, and we have many working in the company that are just working and doing their jobs, but we also have many that are working with us, testing the products, and also just providing input. So right now I'm doing interviews with people just on the experience, so not necessarily testing the product, but to understand the complete social situation that they are in, and the disability, and how do you go about it, and what are the kind of day in a life situations that make such a difference. Because and this one person said to me, you have to stop thinking about it as that you're designing a medical device, and think about that you're designing something that's changing someone's life. And it made such a huge impact on me, because it is so much more than just a function. Of course it has to work, and it has to be the best product, because that's what we want to do, but it has to fit into their lives. If it doesn't, they're not going to use it, and then nobody gets anything out of it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I think it's important to mention also the impact when somebody contacts a company to complain and gets this kind of response. It's very empowering.
Yes.
And it kind of lets these people start looking around themselves and thinking, what else can I improve? And so yeah, compliments on that one.
Yeah.
Changing the subject, can I ask, what is it like for you to maintain like work and personal life balance?
That was a huge change for me when I moved to Iceland. So I was working in Italy before, and I think I was coming home at 8, and then I usually open up the computer again, and that was a very normal thing. So I remember when I came here, and kind of at 5, I was looking around thinking, like, where did everyone, is there a meeting that I'm missing, or what's happening? It was really strange because I was just alone. So Iceland taught me that for sure. That was a huge difference from before. But then the biggest learning was my daughter. Then there was just a pullback on I want to spend time with her, because as I mentioned before, I'm one of the lucky ones. I love what I do, and pushing for industrial design, pushing for user insight. It's always, taken with open arms, and I'm supported by my manager with it. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to see this grow within the company. So it takes something to kind of pull you so that you maintain that work-life balance. So it's definitely been a challenge for me over the years. But I think moving to Iceland and then having our daughter, it made it so much easier, because that helps me find the balance. As it's very easy to get carried away when you're doing something fun, to just kind of take it all the way.
Yeah, well, I think it's different, like whether it's by your own initiative, you just love it so much that you do it all the time, or if it's a company that's making these demands on you. And my experience when I talk to people, I feel like big companies, they often have a tendency of being very efficient at extracting all available time out of their employees. So you don't think that's the case here in Össur?
No, that's not been my experience at all. No. And at least with my team, my approach to it is, first and foremost, it's the trust. So I never expect them to work 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. I expect them to work when they are most, when it is the best time for them, if they're A types, or morning or evening types, or as long as we do the job and we get it done, and they are happy and proud of the work that they're delivering, the hours shouldn't matter. And since they are all very motivated, it's more that I need to step in to make sure that they're also getting the rest and things like that. But at least for me, it hasn't. I mean, I saw a completely different culture in working in Spain and Italy, and they have a saying of keeping the seat warm. So you make sure you keep the seat warm until the manager goes home, then you go home. So it's kind of a lot about the appearance. And for me, I've known from the beginning I earned it from the beginning, trust from my manager. Then the rest kind of, if you have an open relationship and it's built on trust, then you don't have that as much, I think, that issue. But and I think when you work in design, there are these kind of periods where there's a lot, and you get the momentum is going, and you want to get things done, and then you put in the extra hours because you're doing something phenomenal. And you can't, for us, we're working on projects where we want to change the game in prosthetics, and to do that you have to put in the extra, whatever it is. If it's time or effort or knowledge or design, you put in that extra, but then you have to be smart enough to pull back when you can, because you can't go at 150 at all times. But if you're going to change the game, you're going to have to go 150 at some points. But then you need to be smart enough to know, go home early, or kind of, when it's not needed, that you take good care of yourself at that point in time. Or at least that's what it is for us. It is a much better fit than we have a fixed hours from 8 to 4, and I expect to see you in your seats at all times, because they're all over the place. They're meeting with users a lot and kind of doing different things. So I encourage them to do that, but I think you can only do that if you build it on trust. I think that's the foundation of all of it.
Yeah, I can imagine it's kind of tricky to maintain, maximum creativity in a corporate environment.
It is. And it's also challenging if you're a creative type, but you're in a corporate environment. So there's all the logistics that you have to also complete that nobody likes to do, but kind of a balance in between it. Because with the big corporation, and it's funny, because when I came to Össur, I thought it was quite small. Now I'm getting used to it again, because coming from Novo Nordisk, that's a much bigger company. But with it, then you have this infrastructure, and you have, we have a motion lab where we can test things, and we have this everything, that the big framework to support the big ideas, to take them forward. So there's kind of this balance between it, because if you're in a startup, then you often don't have that support to take your big ideas forward. So it's pros and cons, I think, in all of it.
So another tangent. So what is art to you? What does this word mean?
That's a big question. What is art? I think it is a form of expression that creates an experience or emotions, both by the creator and the observers. How's that?
It's very to the point. I like it. Yeah, I've been asking everybody this. I'm just curious kind of what comes out of it. If there is a consensus. And that's you put it very distinctly. Definitely. Do you think art is important was the next question, but I'm curious, like, let's see. Yeah, I mean, you already answered this in some ways, but I still want to ask again, like, what are things to think about when you're trying to nurture, like, artistic freedom and creativity in people who are working in, the framework of Össur, the company?
To nurture the artistic freedom.
Yeah, so this challenge of kind of keeping them on task and doing their job.
Yeah.
But also, allowing them to kind of feel as if they are valued in their creativity and they have space to kind of explore outside of, doing a robotic chore, so to speak.
So I think the design process sort of explains it really well. How in the beginning you go big and you nurture that. I think in, for example, brainstorming activities and allowing us to go as far as we want. So even though we have, at the end of the day, we have a design language for Össur, and we want to have a design language for all of our products. So it can't be each individual designer with their own individual product, because we want to maintain kind of the Össur brand and things like that. But I think in order to allow for that in the very beginning, you go big and you let all the ideas come out there. And then from there, you kind of narrow it back down, but that should be focused from the user feedback. Like kind of we focus it back down based on what is important to the user. And then once you have that, you have to open it up again. So it kind of goes like, like it opens up and then you have to narrow it down. Then you have to open it up again until you kind of narrow it down to the final one. So, and I think this is a technique like that you do in brainstorming, that you kind of, you set the rules and you lead by example by opening opportunities, opening it for ideas and building off of each other ideas and things like that. Rather than, no, we tried that before, we're not gonna do it again. So, but to kind of like, okay, but what if we thought of this way? And I heard this just the other day, that it wasn't necessarily the first person to have an idea or the first person to stand up that is the most important. It is often the person who backs it up, because as soon as it's backed up, then it often starts to kind of become something. So kind of having that freedom to collaborate and go big. So in the processes that we allow for it, we take time for it, and we don't think that it's a waste of time. Like, yeah, we're never going to do that. That's like too sci-fi or too far into the future. But like, hey, we can build off of it and bring it forward. So I think that's one. And the other one is just we have development plans for each and individual designer. So working off of their superpower is something that I've always thought of, kind of, what is your superpower? If it is sketching, then let's spend a lot of hours on sketching and make you the best sketcher that Össur has, rather than trying to make all of them equally good in everything. So trying to go whatever it can be for creative parts. And then there's, if it's courses or mentoring or however we go about it. And then the other thing is these little things. So we just moved into this one, this building, and we have this brainstorming room here. So I was thinking a lot like, how can we really make it different? Not like the typical meeting room and things like that. So we put a lot of thought into how to make that different and how to then use it differently. So now I have started randomly with anyone within the company, not necessarily the design team. So we have people like electrical engineers joining us that are creative, and we start every Wednesday morning with a sketch session. So we have different people come in with different tools or different exercises. We have half an hour and we just sketch together.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. Sorry. Sorry.
Við þekkjum sko
Já.
Og sér Siggu sko, við vorum sko saman á skóladæminu Höfn held ég.
Já, alveg.
Og ég man svo vel eftir því ég man svo eftir mömmuðinni.
Já.
Það þekkist sko mömmur okkar, en mamma nú alltaf svo góðleg. Og ég man bara mjög vel eftir því.
Já, fyndið.
Þannig, já. En gaman að fá okkur.
Já, takk.
Við erum komin alveg bara í fullan viðtal.
Já, ok. Já, ég sé alltaf að þú...
Já, ég er með mæk og allt sko.
Það er allt í góð, þetta er voða afslappa.
Já, ok, flott.
Við erum að gera smá tilraun, ég taka viðtöl og rannsaka svona stuðning við skapandi hugsun.
Já.
Þannig að ég er búinn að vera að taka viðtöl við bæði fólk sem að er að styðja við skapandi iðnað og líka bara listafólk.
Já, ok, frábært.
Þannig að þetta er svona komist út í ideológíu.
Já, ok.
En samt, þetta er búið að vera gaman, mjög fræðandi hérna.
Mjög skemmtilegar spurningar, ég er alveg komin að fullt að hugsa þetta allt saman. Mjög skemmtilegt, já, mjög svo.
Það er líka það Sigga fyrir flug, það gerast hlutinu sko. Það er bara... Ég trúi því mjög vel, hún er rosalega vönduð.
Þakka þér fyrir það.
Og bara klár og...
Ég gaf mér ekki vænt þetta, takk fyrir.
Mjög sterkt eitthvað með þetta.
Það er skemmtilegt, takk.
Ég sé pínu eftir að ekki tekið vídeo og maður sér hérna ítalan í þér. Það er alltaf hérna...
Það var handabendingarnar hann að sminka.
Aðeins.
Við vorum segja nátt frá því sko þegar við sátum á sirkuru hæðinni hérna þegar hann var nýbyrjuð. Og þá var ég stundum að taka símtöl, þú veist, svo í gegnum tölvuna bara við borðið mitt. Og svo kom hún alltaf að tekka eitthvað á mér og þá, sko, ef ég væri í símanum þá var hún alltaf að gera svona. Og ég er alveg, ok, þú veist, chillaði, ég er bara í símanum. En þá þýður þetta eitthvað allt annað.
Ég segi, ég kem bara aftur. En hún alltaf hélt ég var að segja bara, wrap it up.
Speed it up, lady.
En þetta er orðið okkar bara einn.
Já, þetta er bara húður á nú. En maður spyrja sko, hvar skilgreinir skapandi?
Það er góð spurning. Hvað skilgreinir þú skapandi?
Ég nefnilega fór að hugsa það þegar þú sagði þetta sko.
Já.
Af því ég hugsa sko, mitt default er að hugsa sko, skapandi sko, þú veist, vöru...
Má ég bæta þér við í viðtalið? That's the game.
Já.
Can you take my mic and put it on over her?
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you didn't speak Icelandic, sorry. Já, við tölum eiginlega, ég er ómögulega að tala íslensku á svona fagmálinu sko, þannig að...
Það er miklu öðulega. Við skiptum yfir ég alveg, það var bara miklu betra.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
No, I figured like I have a lot of friends abroad.
Okay.
So I figured that my initial viewership, if any, will definitely be English speaking.
Okay.
For the large part, so when people don't mind, it will be.
Of course.
I like English. I do that. But anyway, yeah, you had a question that I threw back at you.
Yeah.
What was it?
So my question was how you define. Well, now I need to think about the English word for skapandi. Creativity, like or creative fields. How would you define them? And I think in my narrow mind, being in the office and at work here, I kind of go into the scope of, development, but also, this kind of how do we combine the artistic view, if you like, with product development, because especially for us, I mean, we're developing products that are intended to be a part of people's lives and part of their daily activities,
part
all
of
day.
the human body. So
Yes,
it's part
exactly.
of you.
It's a replacement of a lost body part. So we are kind of trying to move us away from being very sort of mechanically engineering oriented to kind of, and Sigga does that extremely well, to give the engineers a sense of the empathy and the importance of understanding our patients and our users. So when you say creative, I was curious to kind of understand where that takes you in that, where that definition lies. Because I realize I obviously have a very sort of engineering approach to that terminology.
No, I like your explanation. I think realizing that you're creating something that becomes part of people's identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's definitely a huge part of it. And I wonder, do you consider like modularity? So you design a leg,
Mm-hmm.
and now I get the leg, and 1,000 other people. To what degree can I make it my leg?
Right. Yeah, that's
our favorite topic.
Yeah.
I think if you speak to our users, each and every one of them that I've talked to so far, they refer to their leg, to my leg. So it is, they identify with it a lot as their leg. So I've not yet heard anyone say my whatever company or my this leg. They very much, it is a very personal product that is put together for them by their healthcare professional or CPO in that case. And for acceptance of it, that is something that I believe is really important, that they, you know, identify with it and see it as a part of them, so that they use it more, which is what helps everyone really at the end of the day. But how exactly you personalize it is a topic that we're hoping to understand better by talking to users, to kind of what is it exactly that makes a difference in personalizing it.
Because even though, you know, like Zika says, people refer to it as my leg or my arm, there's a lot of the componentry used that is, you know, mass produced or is not personalized at all, or even not even personalizable, which is something that we continue to discuss. And how can you know, because the approach in our industry has been, you're missing a leg, you need a leg to walk, and it's all about how do we get this person walking. But it's not so, it hasn't been as much put effort into, you know, how can we create trust and association with this mechanical thing that we have produced here in Iceland or somewhere else, and then the healthcare practitioner has screwed together and yes, made some personal kind of adjustments to, but we feel there is a lot of opportunity to kind of allow people to personalize more, not only on the functionality, but on the aesthetics and the feel, and sometimes just the fit with clothing and things like that. That, you know, I think as an industry, we're a little bit immature because we've been a little bit stuck in this, you know, it's a mechanical problem that we're solving. Whereas that's only a fraction of the challenge we're up against. We're replacing a lost body part, and we're helping people through a very traumatic, usually a very traumatic experience. And so it is not just like, here's a leg, off you go. You know, it's much more about the association and the trust and empathy. Exactly.
That's key.
And that's why, like, when Sigga is interviewing users, like, one of the key things that comes up is their relationship with their, we call it CPOs, that's their healthcare practitioner. And yes, they make the leg, but they're also their support system. And the only person usually that they know that understands the situation that they're in. Amputations are so rare that it's unusual that people go through an amputation and know a bunch of people who have gone through the same. It's, you know, they're usually quite alone and quite isolated in this journey that they go on, and then the healthcare practitioner becomes their, you know, sole supporter almost. And so we like to think of it as we want to take the steps away from solving a mechanical problem and being more of a support to people who need our services, basically.
Yeah.
That's kind of
yeah.
So that's the small task that Sika has on her plate, because this is not only, I'm not talking for us as a company, but the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
It is a very mechanical.
It's completely
industry.
new, and you have a lot of examples from other industries, like phone companies, like the Apple Watches. There's a lot of customization happening, and people are really going for it. So you can see examples where it's working elsewhere. Anything to like Coca-Cola did remember when they had the names on the bottles, and that was very personal because you saw your name on it. So there's a lot of other examples that we think is good inspiration to where we can potentially go. Yeah, we're not going to put the names like Coca-Cola, but just as an example.
No, I'm familiar with this. I'm of course a user of assistive technology, and I know this interaction is usually rather limited.
Right.
So very often I get delivered something, and that's it.
Right. Yeah.
The process of exploration, how to utilize it, and personalize it is like in Denmark they have a lot more wheelchair users, so they've created their own hackathon or hacking community where they come together and they program their chairs and mess around with it. We haven't really managed to do that in Iceland yet.
Right.
But, I did like that idea.
Yeah. No, exactly, because that creates this sense of community as well, or an interaction with people that are dealing with similar challenges. And that's definitely, at least sort of in our industry, like I said, where it's a relatively rare kind of condition to have that, anything that we can do to bring people together. And
do you do that? Do you foster communities?
We do it through our clinics, so we're not only in the product business, we also operate like patient care centers, and there, at least in some markets or some countries, the clinics are kind of bringing together users like on a Saturday, where it's about just them. It's not us pushing products or our services, but just a venue for users to come together, maybe try out new things. I was in South Africa this summer. That was a very sort of, it was very inspirational for me, actually. There was a huge group of amputees coming together. None of them had met before, and they were coming from like all areas of the country, all levels of society and income and funding and all of that. And it was really, really interesting to see how people were teaching each other and relying on each other. Nobody was thinking about what the product was called or anything like that. It was all about, you're doing good, and just lose the cane. You can lose the cane now, and it was creating that type of community around people that otherwise don't have anyone to kind of get insights from. So yeah.
I think it's also the mobility clinic. So a lot of the focus is on the mobility, or about your gait, or exactly how you walk, which is hugely important to an amputee, because the better you walk, it just pays into the future so much from your body. So you're coming together often to learn that, but there's so much more benefit because you meet all these other people. And I think people do a lot of one-on-one, or at least a lot of the users that we've spoken to, they meet others, they go, and if somebody's having an amputation, they go to the hospital. There's a lot of this one-on-one communication that people get a lot out of, both giving and receiving. And that often comes from these groups. So I think there's a lot of spillover effect kind of coming out of it that creates these relationships that are often, I think, kind of one-on-one, because it is such a challenging thing that they're going through.
Yeah, and a personal kind of
very personal one. Yeah.
We call it jafningafræðsla.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Peer to peer.
Yeah.
Becoming disabled, that was the most useful kind of way of learning. How do I deal with my new situation?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because you trust, I think, also people, that are in a similar situation or have the experience to guide you.
I think also like you sit in a wheelchair and somebody asks you, is this what you want?
Right.
And the thing is, like, in that moment it feels fine, but then I sit in the same wheelchair for 12 hours a day for 3 weeks.
Mhm.
And now I start to notice like there's a discomfort here, there's discomfort there.
Right.
Things that you could never realize without sitting in the wheelchair for that amount of time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So think about how many occupational therapists or other people that work, and are healthy.
Mhm.
They're not able to kind of give that kind of insight.
Right. No, exactly.
Unless they are really dedicated and
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
extremely experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I think our experience is also that sometimes challenges that people are dealing with, they don't bubble up.
Yeah.
And and you've experienced this. You ask people like, "Is this a problem?" No, it's not. But then you ask a little bit more and a little bit deeper, and actually it is. And it's just people sometimes just don't realize because, like you said, it's just you get on with your day and you kind of park it somewhere. But that's kind of what we're trying to dig into as well. It's like those challenges that people are dealing with that might not bubble up to us, but we could maybe do something about.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of give people the voice, yeah. But this is something that you need to dig for, to really understand.
Yeah, yeah.
You often deal with people that have learned to kind of make do.
Yes, always.
Yeah.
Always.
And they don't even realize it themselves. So it's they're genuinely answering, no, it's fine. But then once you ask the right questions, it actually comes out that they've made a lot of kind of alternative ways or things or design things around it. Yeah, compromises, exactly, to make it okay. So it's and it's kind of, I think, a revelation for them as well. Like, oh yeah, okay, no, it's actually not, and it could be better. And that's how, and that's the kind of the goal that we need to feed our designers, because that's what they live on. They love getting challenges, that they like solving issues is something. I think the entire R&D team,
that's why we're all here.
That's why we're here, for the user. But on top of that, you get to solve problem nobody else has solved. Like that's a lot of fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our journey, is to, because we have really good understanding of the sort of, like I said before, like the mechanical, biomechanical challenges that our population is dealing with. We're trying to kind of dig deeper to really kind of address those challenges that are sometimes it's just a little bit more hidden. Like how do you go to the bathroom at night? How do you shower when you're traveling? All of those things that are not maybe critical to get back to work or get back into society, but are critical for you to have a good and meaningful life. So that's kind of what we're after, basically. So that's why I was curious about your creative, because creative kind of description can be a little bit stretched in all directions, I think.
Based on that, creativity for us is a lot about solving problems.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's our very sort of engineering kind of approach to it. That's why I was curious, like how, in what direction you were looking at the concept.
I suppose that's why I'm really happy to be here this early in my journey.
Yeah.
I think like what a company does, it harnesses like that creative power.
Right.
And in personal context, what creativity is, like being an artist. It's something that I never thought about before I got disabled. And then once I became disabled, I realized it kind of means freedom. For me, it means freedom. That I've been confined to certain limitations, and then by calling myself an artist or an entrepreneur, it opens up this freedom to do whatever I want. So I get to recreate my reality, and then I use art as a process to explore and experiment, and then I make mistakes. It's also the freedom to make mistakes.
Right. Yeah.
Like if you're not creative, you are confining yourself to doing things as they have always been done.
Absolutely.
And you do that to be more efficient. And
yes.
There's logic in that, I suppose.
Yeah.
When you put the creative stamp on it, you're saying you have freedom to make mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that rhymes really well, kind of, with the mentality we have here in R&D, because I think that is kind of what most of our employees want, is to be creative and not go the standard way of towards things. I think that's
I see people waiting for the office. Can I ask one
question?
question?
I can.
What questions should I be asking that I haven't asked yet?
About the. So one thing that not that you should be asking it, but because we talked about creative space, so that's what I was thinking about a lot before we met today, and because we moved into the new offices, I think, because I've seen my team transform from being in this space then compared to what we were downstairs. So downstairs used to be a car dealership,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
It's like huge spaces and not a lot of wall space. And now that we moved here, so it's simple things, super simple things. They have like wall space, so they're very visual. They sketch a lot, and now they're sketching all the time. And we have one like communal table. So now after lunch, I always find them all sitting together, sharing their challenges, and they're all sketching and figuring. And they're not necessarily all working on the same projects, but they just come together and they're sketching, collaborating, and they're throwing it up. So it's visual all around them. So like my team were very visual creatures. So it's seeing them like collaborating like this has been unbelievable. They didn't do it downstairs, and if they needed focus time downstairs, they would disappear. They wouldn't be there. So here I'm just seeing it's like just moving up and down. I mean, of course, there's a lot of other things happening. They're building a relationship between them and everything, but it's been a huge, and it's not that you need a new office and a brand new house. They needed a common table and wall space. Mm-hmm. That's what made a huge difference, seeing it from like, yeah, that's been really fun to watch. It kind of just organically happened with them. So I think, and I've also, like before, I had two designers and they were sitting kind of across from each other, and we had to have meetings weekly to kind of check in on the status. Then I moved them and they sat next to each other, so they saw each other's screens, and I could skip the weekly meetings because they just talked, because they saw what was happening. So it's sometimes these tiny little things in the space that you're collaborating or creating in that can make a huge difference and an advance based on the collaboration that you get from the team. So I think that's been a huge learning.
So huge, because I've sat close to the team both now and in the last downstairs area that we were, and just you can just feel the different energy. Yeah. But this happens organically, yes, but it of course happened because, I mean, you spent a lot of time and effort in figuring out what would work for this. This doesn't happen like automatic. Just so that's good. No, there was a lot of planning. There was a lot of planning, but once it was done, then it kind of it worked. Exactly. And I think that is kind of
that. Yeah, my point being is, we had to structure it and figure out what was the need. So exactly like we do in our product. So what's the need for the team? Once that was there, then if it's designed properly, then it just kind of organically happens. So then I didn't have to be like, okay, guys, we're all coming here together now and we're going to collaborate. That just kind of, because we offered the environment for it, and then it just kind of
fosters it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It reminds me of, I forget who told me, but somebody told me that their family, every time they had a family dinner, they would always put a big sheet of paper on the table, and then they would have pens and crayons, and while they were eating, they would just sketch and draw. Yeah. And the entire family turned out to be like a really creative bunch.
Right.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly. It's creating the environment, because I think everyone is creative just in their own way, and that's about how they express it. Then, it's another. Yeah. I always make that joke at home with my kids, because my husband, his drawing skills are very limited, but I'm sure he is creative. He just doesn't have the means to bring it out. But it's about creating the environment to foster that. And I think that also And that's kind of what we're trying to do with engineers, to bring them closer to the reality of our patients and bring them closer to the emotional side of the journey that our people go through, to be able to, because they're going to pick it up and they're going to do something super creative with it in their own way. But it's about kind of creating the environment where that is a topic, you know. The emotional and sort of the empathy plays a role in our very engineering, you know, structured way of working. So
it's a tricky subject because it means because we're used to the Excel sheet and the formulas, and this doesn't fit into it. So we're testing a lot of different ways. But the beautiful thing that I'm seeing is that no matter who you talk to, if it is about the user, like they're like, tell me more. Like, whoa, I didn't know that. And I've been with the company for a long time. So we opened up R&D last year on Innovation Week. So we showed all of the different things that we're doing. And it was unbelievable to see the entire company, people that have been in finance for 6 years. They were like, I had no idea we were doing that. So, and they felt this like closeness. And this one person who's in production, he looked at, we had the hand that we were making. And he looked at it, he's like, oh, I make that piece of it. I've never seen it. Like, whoa, like that's how it all comes together. And that's how I contribute into it, which to me was like, okay, we were successful with that day just from that one comment, that it made a difference to this person, how his thing contributes into it. Like it matters a lot.
Do you still do skuffudag?
Skunk days. Yeah, this is
Skuffudag. I haven't heard that. That's a good word.
So this went a little bit dormant through COVID, but we have actually, and I've been very eager to reestablish it now. And we have like an annual meeting where all the R&D teams from, you know, we have a team in the US, a team in Scotland, people in Germany and Canada, where everyone comes together here in Iceland. And we're sort of figuring out how to do it this time around by allowing people to be very creative and solve an issue. But we want to use the opportunity to kind of bring this element that we're discussing about, you know, not the mechanical problem of an amputee, but something else, you know, what else, you know, some sort of a different challenge that to kind of try to plant some seeds. So so we're working on kind of invigorating it. Is that a word? Restarting that. Restarting it. Essentially,
But at the same time, I think also one change that you made that I mentioned before is that we have a team that is doing skunk every day, like the Center for New Technology, so that we have a function that kind of, that's all they do all the time. But yes, we'd also love to do it with a broader team. But I think that's something that kind of is different with us, because we have people who have that freedom to kind of just go out and explore. And very capable people doing that. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So that was my first introduction to Össur. Really.
Right. Yeah. That was some time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just that we were starting with Gunther.
Okay.
And then we got invited to be part of organizing it here.
Yeah.
And so my role was to bring people who dealt with specific issues that teams here in Össur had chosen to tackle that day. And I don't know if I ever gave the feedback from the people that I brought in.
Okay.
But they kept talking about it for years.
Yeah, okay.
I think they were always waiting for another chance.
Right, okay.
To come in and kind of sit down with 5 engineers and designers and just get to kind of, you know, experience this process of having an idea and seeing how this come to reality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the plan.
Yeah.
What we have also done since then is that we have a team that is dedicated for sort of technical research and kind of, you know, exploration, really, you know, just what I've told them, just spend money and, you know, fail fast and run fast and fail fast at it. But then we also have a process of technical projects. And essentially anyone within R&D can initiate it or can propose a technical project. And then we have like an intake meeting where a few of us sit and review kind of the concept and the business case and the cost and everything, and kind of decide whether to kind of continue or like start it and invest in it, or what we do. But I think that has also given kind of everyone within the team a chance to kind of be a little bit creative outside of their very sort of formalized roles and responsibility within the team, because we have obviously our biggest bulk of our employees are engineers and technicians, but there's a lot of people in kind of enabling units or enabling functions that are very creative. That's just not part of their day-to-day role necessarily, but this gives them an opportunity to be that. But the skunk kind of concept really draws everyone in and kind of pushes everyone
big
to
scale.
do that. Yeah.
I remember, can I ask you also to introduce yourself?
Yes.
Your role in the company.
I can, yes. So my name is Hildur Einarsdóttir, and I am responsible for research and development at Össur. I've been with the company for almost 15 years. Started here as an engineer in R&D in the bionic section, so working on the microprocessor controlled knees and ankles. And then I spent a good 7-8 years on what the engineers refer to as the dark side, on the commercial end of the company, which was a very good experience, I felt. Getting an opportunity to work closer in the field, whether that was in Asia or in the US or in Europe. And then I came back home to R&D in 2018, and I've been responsible for the department since last year. So I think that's me in a nutshell. I always say this. In my first years here, I spent 1 week in Iceland and 1 week in the US with a clinic that was servicing very injured young people. And we met maybe 20-30 amputees per day that had all quite severe injuries and quite a difficult kind of amputation levels and difficult challenges. And that sparked not only, I mean, I'm an engineer by training, so that there's always this element of wanting to solve things and provide the solution, but it just taught me so much about the personal challenges that people go through, and the, you know, how deep rooted that challenge is, and how important it is that even though we are developing and producing products in the numbers here, like it's a mass produced product line or product offering, at the end of the line there's an individual who needs our products, and that is what I want to stand for, and that's kind of why we're on this journey to really push for that. It is not only a mechanical problem that we're solving. So, no. Then you need to. Yeah.
What's your superpower?
Ha. It's easier if Hildur answers for me, right? And I can answer for her. It's so hard to say for yourself.
We can do that. I can't think of anything for myself. So no, you go with yours.
I think, like, based on everything that we've been talking about, it's this kind of it's hard. Kind of bringing people together and getting them excited about the collaboration, and kind of the sparking something, like having it take off, I think. But you can disagree.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It has this ability to break the norm and be very, very willing to do that. You know, it's coming into R&D, it's a very, we're all very square-minded engineers, and we're used to doing things this way, and, this is the problem, and we're really deep into it, and she goes, why? Why do you want to do that? Why don't you do it completely different? I think that's the superpower, and there's a courage that you need to do that in a in a very squared engineering world that we have here. So
I can imagine your enthusiasm is infectious.
absolutely. That's why I say when she gets going, it's like we're gonna do it. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. I think it's because I love what I do, and I have the freedom to do it. I think that's the yeah. I think that's why.
Yeah, that shows.
What's yours?
I don't know. Yeah. What I would like it to be is this kind of ability to understand the human side of an engineering challenge. I don't know, and bring those kind of two sides together. I think that's at least I see it in my head. I hope I can. That's kind of what I can beam out.
I think you are.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I hope so.
But you were able to do that because your superpower. That's what I've always said. It's because you're a complete nerd when it comes to it. Like you can really get into the specific details of something that is like astronomically difficult to understand. But at the same time, you have the emotional intelligence, and it's very rare to find that. So for me, I've in the beginning, I was just thinking about it because you have it as my boss, and you understood if I came to you with whatever problems, you understood the emotional or like the people part of it.
Right.
But I trusted you because you knew what you were doing on the mechanical side of it. But this, like now, I'm seeing it from the user point of view.
Right.
So the emotional intelligence that I just was thinking about for myself as my manager now, like that's what will get us through with this user-centric design, because you get the emotional part of it. So whether it's for me or the users, it's the same ability.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're in therapy.
Yeah.
It's good.
Can you go more often? Or?
Yeah.
I think life is a therapy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's an hour.
Yeah.
I realize we could go on for
longer.
Yeah,
You're welcome to come back.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm gonna gain some more experience,
and
then we'll come back and see if it's any different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sounds good. Very good. Sorry, I barged in on the interview.
It was perfect.
Maybe, yeah.
No, it's wonderful.
Okay.
I like the randomness.
Okay.
Kind of working with it. I mean, like I said, we don't have any specific agenda. The idea is just to kind of explore ideas and kind of see where this takes us. And it's really useful to hear, like, your challenge of the engineer's problem. I mean, that's a topic I've heard so many times. You have an engineer who designs the perfect solution for the problem, but then nobody's going to use it because you need to be an engineer, that specific engineer, to understand how to actually implement it in your own context.
Yeah, exactly.
So the challenge of designing something that can be taken in by 100 different people.
Right.
Yeah.
They all get to utilize it. So it seems like you have some kind of harmony
Right.
here between the engineers and the design and the users and the empathy.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why Össur is so successful. I mean, that is like, I think that would be the point for the next interview. It's like really kind of trying to figure out like why is in this, in Iceland.
Right.
Do we have an international prosthetics company? Like a manufacturing company in Iceland just doesn't make any sense.
Right. No, exactly.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Why does it survive and thrive?
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Do you have a quick answer for that?
I think it's multiple things. I think it is I think even though, sometimes, because we work in a very international environment, obviously, and sometimes I'm like, oh, Jesus, we continue to work according to this Icelandic saying, "Þetta reddast."
Yeah.
And it, sometimes when you're running a business, that cannot be ideal, but I do think that there's an element in that has gotten us to the point where we're at. And the realization that we're on a tiny little island in the middle of the ocean. We're far away from everything. And I think that makes us curious and realizing that our reality here is not the world. and that makes us seek to understand people from around the world. Or I'd like to think that we realize that you can't look at an amputee in Iceland and say this is the profile that we're working for, because very few people kind of live in this landscape and in these weather conditions and with the funding and everything that is available here. So I think it makes us curious enough to really dig and understand the different aspects or different corners of the world. So combined with this very optimistic Tettarettas mentality probably has something to do with it.
I have a very also like a specific point of view on it, because I have a team of industrial designers, and industrial design is not taught in Iceland, so I have to go find them elsewhere or find people from Iceland that have studied elsewhere. And what it made me realize, also having lived abroad for a long time, is that for them, having moved here, getting the opportunity to work on prosthesis, which to them is very fulfilling in a professional career, because they're doing something that really matters, and it's challenging and it's fun, but they get to explore. Like my team, like they've all bought like huge Jeeps, taken everything out, redecorated it, and they're out in the middle of Highlands every weekend, and they've seen so much more of Iceland than any of us. Like they're all over, and to them it's like we're not. So my husband being Italian, people keep kind of like asking him like, why did you come to Iceland? And for him, he loves it. Like for our daughter, he could not think of a better place to be. So he's always like having to convince Icelander that it's actually amazing. And then I see them and they're like all over exploring, and like they're flying drones on the weekends and like making the most of it. I've learned how to sell it as an amazing experience, because I'm seeing it through their eyes. They're making it. It's amazing, but we have to, I think, as a country, learn to sell it that way. If we're like, in my instance, for this particular case, it's about attracting talent that is specialized in something. And when you see it, I mean, it took some time, and you need to find the right people with the right, they have to love what they do as well, because it's a lot to ask to move to another country. But I love seeing their enthusiasm and, everywhere that they've been and what they've experienced while, not just the job, but being out there and seeing everything.
And I guess and I do think that this diversity that we have in the team, especially in R&D, we have almost 20 nationalities just here in Iceland in the team. And that is, again, so crucial too, because we're serving so many diverse groups of people, and I think that contributes as well. But yeah, we need to, because I was, when Sigga was moving to Iceland, had moved here, and I was like, are you sure you want to stay? Of course.
There are days that I wish I was back in Rome, but yeah.
I was once asked, I was in a panel in Norway, and I was asked, like, why should entrepreneurs move to Iceland?
Right.
In that moment I froze, because my brain was going like, they shouldn't.
Right, exactly. Dark.
And the panelist was really good. She kind of jumped in, and besides the peaceful environment, the good water, the nature, and as she started counting out, I started realizing like, okay,
yeah,
it is pretty nice.
It is pretty good. Yeah.
And I think it gives. I think also maybe what helps in the success of a company is that we are not very hierarchy oriented. We are, yes, we have an organizational chart and people have roles and responsibilities, but I worked as an engineer in the UK, for example, where it is a lot more structured, and there's a lot more, before you can have an opinion on this, you need to work for 3 years and you need to have developed this and that, it's and here it is more fluid. And I think that also, we kind of, if a good idea comes from someone who just joined last week, then great, we take it. And I think that is, and Össur kind of makes an effort of that, being a relatively flat structure, not taking ourselves too seriously on that end. I think that helps us to kind of bring out the best ideas and take, difficult decisions, no matter, who they come from or I think that helps. Being a little bit loose on the structure and the hierarchy, I think is good. Yeah. I think that helps creativity specifically.
Yeah.
Because you don't want, you shouldn't earn the right to be creative with experience or your level within the company. That doesn't make any sense, and I think that probably I think we probably do well compared to sort of the more structured organizations we're in.
I think so.
Yeah. Right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
Good.
Perfect.
I wonder, would you have something to show us?
Yeah.
Just a quick walk around.
We can go around.